Is our exciting intro to our two-market model. Thanks for checking us out today and learning a little bit more about what we're up to. As a recap for the two-market model, hopefully you would have watched basically the intro video on utilization earlier. So why don't I quickly kind of recap the utilization first. So if you may recall, here's the graph from before. Okay. If you may recall earlier, in terms of utilization, the way it works is basically you have it's a ratio between the number of borrowers and the number of lenders, and it's what today's lending protocols use to basically facilitate a market. And so as that ratio between lenders and borrowers moves around, they basically use that to determine the interest rates. And so effectively these blue lines could be not the dotted line, but the borrower rates could be here. They could be up here, down there. They can kind of be anywhere, right? It's effectively a bunch of dudes kind of drawing some lines on paper and saying, this kind of feels right for where the market is. And, there's a little bit more work that goes into it, and I'm sure there's a little bit more thought. But at the end of the day, the utilization-based model is constrained in its ability to deliver a complete, or at least a theoretically complete, full kind of rates trading, lending, borrowing marketplace. So anyway, again, that's how utilization works. It's based on an uneven number of borrowers and lenders. And again, that's what people use today. So, again, just taking that one step further, when we look at it from the kind of Econ 101 perspective, in the Econ 101 perspective, you have, again, you have this deadweight loss that's kind of baked into the system. Again, you might have 80 lenders, you might have 60 borrowers. The lender surplus is, has been decreased as a result of this. Borrower surplus still exists, but it is much lower than if we could potentially operate basically at the true kind of market equilibrium. So in that true market equilibrium, what would we expect? We would expect more lending, more borrowing. This deadweight loss would kind of disappear, and that would be good, basically, for all the market participants. And so that's what we'll be discussing today. Basically, how can we create a model which is always, at kind of the market equilibrium state? But first, let's just tinker around and see, how big is the market today, and how big could the market be if we fix this? So, market today. And for this, let's look at Aave's TVLs and compound TVLs. Obviously, the market is bigger than just these two alone, but let's use this as a proxy for where the market could go. And I'm going to pull in our trusty stats from DeFi Llama over here. If you haven't gone to DeFi Llama, it's a great dashboard just to see kind of where TVL is locked up and how much is there. So what we can see on this is the TVL for all protocols. I guess we'll look across all networks, all chains. So on Aave, basically there is 6.4 billion of TVL locked up over here. Where's Compound? Compound's down here. 2.9 billion TVL on Compound. 6.4, 2.9. Let's kind of round up and just say, we're looking at a market of maybe 10 billion TVL today. So 6.4, 2.9. Again, we'll kind of round up, just say the market is 10 billion. So if at these 2 points on the curve, if we're operating in an inefficient market, using utilization, inefficient kind of market mechanic, and the market is 10 billion, then if we move to a more efficient model, we should expect the market to go from 10 billion to what, maybe 15, 18 billion, right? So that's basically what we can expect if we can fix this mechanic from a utilization-based model, again, to a proper model. So I will put that aside now, and we will get right into it. Okay. So we're talking about our two-market model, again. And as I mentioned, it is a more efficient model for lending protocols. The way it works is we start off with something we call a subscription market. And it's a two-market model. I'm going to be drawing kind of two boxes, maybe more than two boxes, but there's going to be two markets. So in the subscription market, you effectively have an equal number of lenders and borrowers. Okay, so let's say these guys are lenders. And they're equally matched, 100 to 100 to 100. Let's ignore for the moment how it gets to that state, but let's just accept that that is the case. So you have an equal number of lenders and borrowers. You have interest rate payments going in between the borrowers to lenders. And this is a subscription market. So let me kind of draw a nice box there. Move it to the back. Okay, so that's a subscription market. Equal number of lenders and borrowers. Borrowers are paying interest to the lenders. Now, let's say the interest rate that these borrowers are paying is the floating rate. So they're paying some type of floating rate linked to something over here. And I'll talk about the side shortly. If this floating rate is 3% or 2% or 5%, like it really doesn't matter. The whole point is that everyone in this subscription market is happy in their current state. And again, so that rate's going to move around. If people are unhappy with that rate, they can leave the market, and we'll discuss kind of how they leave that market. So I'll say this is the second market, the subscription market. The other market we call a reference market. And what you have in this reference market is effectively a number of individuals who want to be in the subscription market. So this is some amount of like lenders. There are some amount of I should call them potential lenders. Yeah, potential lenders, potential borrowers. We have potential lenders and potential borrowers. They want to enter this subscription market. And so what we have is basically, imagine like a nightclub, for example. You have a nightclub and there is a door to the nightclub, and that door is here. What we assume is that we have, I have some handy dandy icons here. We have this dude here and this person here. Basically, if anyone wants to come into the club, for example, they basically need to be matched. And so whether it's a guy and a girl, whatever it is, you basically want to match the lenders and the borrowers. So whenever people walk through this door, we have one lender and one borrower who walk through this door together into this club and into this subscription market. And ensuring that these individuals are matched coming in and matched going out, it ensures that the total number of lenders and the total number of borrowers are always a 1-to-1 ratio. And of course, this 1-to-1 ratio means that there will be no bid offer kind of baked into the system, or at least no deadweight loss baked into the mechanics of the system. So we have a series of potential lenders over here. Maybe I'll get rid of these people. Yeah, I'll take them off screen. And there's a smaller number of potential lenders. The subscription market is a much larger market. So we have some lenders up here, some borrowers down there. Inside, you have maybe some current lenders who want to terminate their loan. And you have some current borrowers who want to repay their loan. So here we are with the reference market. There are the potential lenders. Current lenders want to terminate their loan. Down here, there's potential borrowers and current borrowers who want to repay their loan. So the whole goal here is to have a notionally matched or principally matched number of participants in this market. What happens is that, again, if a potential lender walks in the door, this lender now needs to be matched either with a borrower, so the two walk in, and now this ratio goes from 100 to 101, right? So if a lender and a borrower walk in together, then that ratio increases at the same time. Now I've just undid these. If there is someone who is a current lender that wants to terminate their loan and a current borrower who wants to repay their loan, two people can leave the club together, right? So they can walk out the door together like that. And then this number here can go down to 99. And this number here can go down to 99. What can also happen in this case is, so we've discussed kind of how the size of this subscription market increases. So again, for this market to increase, two people walk in the door together. For this market to decrease, two people leave the room together or leave the club together. There's another situation where there's a potential borrower outside that instead of getting matched with a lender, a potential borrower could simply just swap positions with someone who's inside, who's a current borrower. So in that case, there's someone who wants to borrow, someone who wants to repay a loan. So we effectively just swap these two participants at the bottom. In that case, it's the same number of people inside. There's no net inflow or net outflow. We basically just swapped. If the bottom, if this is guys at the bottom and this is girls up top, we swapped one guy for one guy inside here. Similarly, on the lender's side, maybe women have all the money. We swapped one woman with another woman here, and the total number of lenders stays the same. So this is effectively our two-market model. It is far more efficient. I think in the future we'll probably discuss some of the mechanics around, how exactly does the prices, do the rates move within this context. But what this is modeled after is effectively just the TradFi market. So, this at the end of the day, maybe it might sound complex, but really this is just modeled after kind of like traditional finance in the real world, where you have a large number of people, billions, rather trillions of dollars, who are subscribing to pay this floating rate called LIBOR, or used to be called LIBOR. So they're subscribing to this floating rate. They are paying and receiving that rate no matter what, and that's cool. That's fine. But if they simply aren't happy with paying that floating rate, they could pay back their loan. They could terminate their loan. They can basically get out of that market altogether. But in that world, everyone is notionally matched. They're basically equal. The number of lenders and number of borrowers are exactly the same all the time. So we've modeled this after the basically traditional finance model. It's nothing new, although maybe the way we represent it in the context of DeFi, it is a new kind of paradigm for the model for the market. The beauty of this model is that it is stochastic in nature, and I'm not really going to kind of dive too deep into it, but basically you have some market clearing rate here. Again, the lenders and borrowers that are coming in, they have different interests to lend or borrow at different prices. This rate may go up or down based on the randomness that lenders and borrowers, or current lenders and current borrowers, they come to the door and they want to leave or exit. And so this is a random process, or we call it like a stochastic process. And this is in contrast to the utilization-based model, which, again, it's more like deterministic. It's a bunch of guys who've drawn some lines and just said, we're drawing these lines and this is where the interest rate is going to be. And whether utilization is 80%, whether there are 100 lenders and 80 borrowers, or 100 million lenders and 80 million borrowers, that rate is exactly the same. So it's very easy to predict where that rate goes for a fixed number of lenders and borrowers. And there is some randomness to that. But broadly speaking, the two-market model is stochastic. It is basically representative of traditional finance. at the end of the day, we achieve what we should be what we should be trying to achieve, and that is, as I mentioned earlier, that is the equilibrium state. So again, in this equilibrium state, equal number of lenders and borrowers, this is a far more superior model that we're excited to roll out into the DeFi market space. We think it will substantially increase the amount of TVL just generally, simply because borrowers are happier, lenders are happier. But yeah, we'll be talking about this in a little bit more detail as we move forward. We'll be talking about different types of collateral that you can use within this kind of two-market model. We'll be talking about arbitrage, but excited to have you along on this journey. So please stay tuned, and we'll look forward to chatting with you soon.